Locked on Jaguars. The Jags met with the media today, probably for the last time before the draft. I'll tell you what they said. Talk to my man Demetrius Harvey here on Locked on Jaguars.
You are Locked on Jags, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up? Welcome to Locked on Jaguars here on a Friday. I am Tony Wiggins. Thank you for joining me here. Locked on Jaguars, of course, is your team every day, and we appreciate you making us your first listen of the day. A reminder that we are free on all platforms, wherever you get your podcast. It's the last week of draft coverage. It's the last week prior to the NFL draft, which will be in less than a week on Thursday from Las Vegas. The Jaguars have the first pick, obviously, and a lot of the talk has been, what are they going to do? For a lot of the draft period, most of the conversation has centered around defensive end or edge, Aidan Hutchinson from Michigan, and rightfully so. He had a great senior year and has a lot of the attributes that any team would want on their ball club. As of late, a lot of talk and smoke around Travon Walker, the edge or freakazoid at University of Georgia, who played on the number one defense or the best defense in the country, the national championship, Georgia Bulldogs, and had a little bit of a different role than Aidan Hutchinson, but wowed people at the combine and at his private workout. And the bottom line, his reputation from his coaches and his teammates as well. And most of this stuff is about projection or what guys will actually be to the franchise. Nobody makes a decision based on what's first. So with those two, both of those guys are projected to do well. A longtime scout and a longtime personnel person told me this week, if you ain't projecting, you ain't scouting. And a lot of fans probably don't get that and understand it, especially when it might mean the team might take someone who they don't necessarily want that team to take. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is the offensive linemen, I believe, that are probably guys that are being considered. Ikemi Kwanu from NC State, who I heard early in the process, a lot of former players really liked him more than they liked Evan Neal. And then Evan Neal, once you realize, you look at him and you go, that doesn't seem right. He's almost 6'8", 335, 340 pounds, and he shouldn't be jumping up on he shouldn't be doing vertical jumps up to 50 inches off the ground and splitting his legs. And then you see him in his technique. And then when you talk to him, he's just that young man. He's just the kind of young man who seems to be the kind of guy that's if you want to talk about the safest pick, he seems like the safest pick in the draft because of his background and also because of the fact that he was able to move around at Alabama and play ever since he was a true freshman. So they talked today, and we'll talk to Demetrius Harvey here from Big Cat Country in just a second. But they talked a lot today about staying on the same page. One of the things that's extremely refreshing for me is that Trent Baalke said that Doug Pederson told him don't overthink it. So right then and there, you see that there's this willingness to probably bend and be flexible, but to also be supportive of a guy that has to make a very, very tough decision, and a guy who's had a real rough off season if you pay attention to the media and the social media and the movement from the fans. And I'm going to tell you something. If he's able to do well and turn this around, which a lot of GMs have been able to in their second spin around, I think Rick Spielman comes to my mind as a guy who didn't do well at first and then had another shot and then had a nice little run in Minnesota. But if somehow Baalke can survive and make some good picks and they improve, he would have walked the gauntlet that is the Duval fan base and really probably survived something that I probably didn't think he could. And also, he would just have persevered and done what you hope somebody who has a lot of mental toughness is able to do. I tell you what we'll do. We're gonna do what we normally do, but we're just gonna do it a little bit quicker. We're gonna get to segment 2 a little bit quicker because I have Demetrius who's going to join me. And I really just want you guys to focus in, because what we're going to do is just ask Demetrius his opinion. He was actually there. I was following along because I had to be somewhere else. We're going to ask Demetrius his impressions of the press conference and just the feeling and comparing it to what we've seen here in the past. We'll do that in segment 2 here on a Friday on Locked On Jaguars. After I tell you about Shady Rays, which is an independent sunglasses company that gives you the features of $200 sunglasses for a fraction of that price. That means polarized lenses, well-constructed durable frames, and premium high-end finishes. Also, something you won't find anywhere else is Shady Rays' insane protection program. That's right. Shady Rays includes lost and broken protection on every pair. You heard me. They will send you a brand new pair if you lose them, no matter what happened. Give them a try. And if you don't love them, you'll pay nothing. It's as simple as that. Plus, 10 meals are donated to fight hunger in America when you shop with Shady Rays. Exclusively for our listeners, head to shadyrays.com and use the promo code Locked On to get 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. That's code Locked On for the best deal of the season, 50% off 2 or more pairs of Shady Rays sunglasses. Backed by over 150,000 verified 5-star reviews. I'm going to give you a 5-star show here in just a second on Locked On Jaguars, and we thank you for making us your first listen all over again. I got my man Demetrius Harvey, who's going to join us. Demetrius, of course, is from Big Cat Country. There he is right there, and he does some work also for SI with those hated Florida Gators. I just got to go ahead and put that out. Let me see if I got something made up here with your name on it. I don't think I do, Demetrius. I'm trying to figure out if I got something up here with your name on it. Let me go back over here and put you right here. And see, no, that's the wrong name. That's not the right. That's not the right guy. That's not the right guy. That's not the right person. Oh my God! So you know what? We're going back over here, man. We're going to do that. All these great guests. We're just going to leave it at that today. That's right. You were down there today. We talked yesterday, and I knew you were going to be there. That's a nice microphone, by the way. That's a nice microphone.
I appreciate it.
I like that.
Well,
so
it's only $100.
Yeah. How much?
$100.
Okay, cool. We talking all of this technology business, and everybody's funny because everybody knows I'm the least most technical person in the world. So it's like, what are you worried about it for? You ain't gonna be able to do nothing. But we talked yesterday about what was going to come. Did you expect anything, or did you see anything that was a little bit different from anything that you expected?
I wouldn't say anything different than I would have expected. I mean, I fully expected them not to come out and say who they're going to pick at number 1. They could have, hedged it a little bit and said that, we know who we're going to pick at number 1, because at this point in the draft, every team knows what they're going to do. Or not every team, but, if you're in that top couple picks, you have a pretty good idea of what you're going to do. And they sort of relented later on, saying that they have about 4 players who are ready to go, 4 players that they're ready to take, whatever. I personally feel like it's down to maybe 2 players, and probably only 1 player has already taken the part, and they're just going to work on the rest of the draft class from here on out. I thought it was pretty good. I thought that Trent came off very well. I thought that Doug was pretty good, as he always has been. I think that he's been more calm, and I don't know, and I'm not going to speculate on if it was whether or not Urban Meyer's been gone and things of that nature, but he's definitely been way more settling. It just seems like it's easier to talk to him or to ask him questions, even if he's not going to give you too much. He's a lot more even keel. So I think that the relationship between him and Doug has gone on well, and from what they said during the pre-draft press conference, they are collaborating. They're depending on who, everybody wants. They're all still going to come to a consensus. And I think that's what you would want to see if you're a Jaguar fan or an observer or anything of that nature.
I saw that Pederson said whoever you pick is going to be a starter day one. Mm-hmm. I don't doubt that anybody, if we're guessing, and I already did that in the first segment, I guess that it's Hutchinson, Walker, and then the 2 linemen, Iquanu and Neal, if I'm just taking a wild guess. So I think all 4 of those guys start coming in. I found it interesting that when specifically talking about Hutchinson, they emphasize cultural, the cultural part of it, that he really fits. And when I saw that, I was like, okay, were they just answering a question and being direct, or were they trying to say, yeah, culturally, he does fit probably more the scheme. And then I found it very interesting when talking about Travon Walker and Hutchinson that Baalke made it a point to say something that I think and you know me, I've been banging my head on my computer. I've been trying to tell people that comparing the two guys as apples and oranges because they were not asked to do the same thing at all.
Yep. Nope.
So I found it interesting. How telling and how interesting was that for you to hear from his mouth?
It was very telling, and I think we've all heard the rumors and everything that Trent Baalke favors Travon Walker ahead of Aidan Hutchinson, and I think that coming out of the draft or coming out of that press conference, I'm not going to say I'm confident in believing that now, but it really did lean toward that. I felt like he defended in terms of what Travon Walker brings as far as his production and things of that nature, how he can fit in a scheme, be moved around, and how the coaches would like a player like that. I thought that he was very, honest or upfront about how he feels about a player of his caliber. So, I mean, to me, it just felt like all of the stuff about Travon Walker that you hear, lack of production, only 6 sacks and things of that nature. And you're sitting there looking at Aidan Hutchinson with the 14 sacks. He said, yeah, Aidan Hutchinson is a good player, but there's other good players too. I just thought that it was telling that he wasn't so upfront and willing to talk heavily in favor of Aidan, but when it came to Travon Walker, he defended these points that some people are putting out there in terms of how, teams might feel about him, saying, hey, maybe, we don't feel that way about him. Just because other people do doesn't mean that we do. So I thought that was very telling. I think that it does lean a little bit more towards me thinking, hey, maybe they do go for the fences and take a Travon Walker instead of Aidan Hutchinson.
Now, just for the purposes of being transparent, you know me, I don't care who they pick. And plus, I thought I still would take Thibodeau over anybody.
Yeah.
But just to prove a point, you came into my office yesterday on other business. Did I not, in an unbiased way, it wasn't highlights either. And it wasn't just the game where Michigan and Georgia played, but I turned it on and I said, we're going to start it from the first play and we're going to watch it until you see what I keep saying. Now, we saw a lot of good plays by Aidan Hutchinson, didn't we? And,
Absolutely.
And we saw a 4 or 5 bad ones, right?
Yeah.
And we were like, I wonder if that's going to happen a lot in the NFL. Now, on the flip side, we watched Travon Walker. We didn't see as many splash plays, did we?
No.
But we didn't see one bad one, did we?
Nope.
And that's the point that I keep trying to tell people. Just put it on and show me where he did something wrong. And you can't. It looks like a guy who's just always doing his job. And even when he didn't make the play, he had some dude over there on his heels fighting for his life, getting bull rushed.
Right.
So the point that I was trying to make with that is you take all the emotion out of it, and that's what they see. And they're like, there's no bad plays. And then there's plays where he's supposed to be out of it. He catches a guy 30 yards down the field. So I said, it's probably still not enough because I listened to Lou Riddick, and Lou Riddick said, when you draft a guy number 1, you want to know that he can go get 12 sacks.
Yes.
I agree with that. And if that's the case, I think they should take Thibodeau, but it looks like it's going to be either Hutchinson. I'm just saying it looks like it's going to be either Hutchinson. And I think with either pick, they do well. But I think with either pick, Josh Allen probably leads the league in sacks. And the other guy is the dude that is the helpmate of Josh Allen. Do you agree?
Absolutely. And I actually asked them about Josh Allen. It's kind of an aside. The 5th-year option's coming up. The deadline is around May 9th, I believe it is. And I asked them, are they going to be exercising that 5th-year option? They still haven't had that discussion. So I'm not sure how, he fits into their long-term plans. I know that's going to be a whole other story later on. But yeah, absolutely. I think that either player, Travon Walker or Aidan Hutchinson or even Thibodeau, but we all know they're probably not going to go that direction. Right. Either player would absolutely make Josh Allen a better player. I mean, just look at his rookie season when he had 10.5 sacks. You had Calais Campbell coming off the edge or inside, and you had Unique Ngakoue on the other side and getting pressure. And all of a sudden, you see Josh Allen coming in and, getting those one-on-ones and getting a little bit more of a relaxed feel, not having to do too much because he has other guys around him able to make those plays. So when you look at that and you see that players are able to do their job and do it well, all of a sudden it's going to open up things for other players. You'll even see guys like DeJuan Smoot maybe benefit, coming in. So I think that either player,
right?
Arden Key is going to come in. The jury's still out on Chase on, but yeah, there's going to be some effects, I guess you can say, where when Aidan Hutchinson or Travon Walker or whoever they pick is on that other side, the next person is going to greatly benefit easily.
No doubt about it. It's a benefit for me to have you here, of course, representing Big Cat Country and that crew. I love Big Cat Country, by the way.
Appreciate
We're
it.
gonna discuss a little bit more, some talk about pick number 33, and we'll do all of that in just a second on a Friday, as I have my friend Demetrius Harvey with me here on Locked On Jaguars. First, I want to tell you guys first about BetOnline. If you guys are out there betting on these basketball games where these teams can't score in the fourth quarter, I know it makes you mad because you're losing your money, but that's all right. If you go to betonline.net, you'll learn more so you won't lose, and you'll understand that certain teams have a tendency to fold down the stretch, because BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news. Is Ben Simmons going to play or is he not? Including this year's basketball playoffs, of course, and of course, Major League Baseball is off to a good start. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, and from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action, because BetOnline is where the game starts. And we are also going to tell you about our friends over at Built Bar. Why am I going to tell you about that? It's because if you're like me and you're in a perpetual lose weight mode, but you don't want to give up good food, well, guess what? I got something that's very good for you that won't hurt you in your quest to get in better shape. It's Built Bar. Built Bar is the number one protein bar in the entire world. One, it's covered with 100% chocolate, and two, the macros are outstanding. If you don't want the candy bar type, you want something that's sort of like a little bit of a pastry, how about Built Puffs? Built Puffs are the first ever protein infused marshmallow. Now, it's marshmallow and it's sort of like a candy bar. It's got a little bit of different texture and shaped a little different, but the taste is good, and it is also covered with 100% chocolate. And you can get them both at built.com and use the promo code LOCK15, and you will have 15% off of your next order. So make sure you check them out. Try them at bar_built on Twitter for all the latest information from Built Bar. Thank you guys for making us, again, your number one listen and your first listen of the day. I have to let you guys know about the Locked On NFL draft coverage. For the first time ever, Locked On is hosting live coverage of the 2022 draft from our studios in Dallas, with pick-by-pick analysis from our local team experts and draft gurus. I'll be in that. Tune in all 3 days as our draft team guides you through every pick and every trade in real time. It all starts on Thursday, April 28th at 7 p.m., available on Locked On NFL, on YouTube, and on the Odyssey app. And we also have the Ultimate Mock Draft with Odyssey and Locked On together. That's out right now. You can check that out on the Locked On NFL Draft page as well, and make sure you tune in to Locked On NFL also for continued draft coverage. I have my man Demetrius Harvey here. We're going to talk about pick 33. I like the fact that Trent said that pick is usually a very, very valuable pick, and the reason why it's valuable is because when you get towards the end of the first round and teams have that little period, I don't know if it's quite 24 hours, but it is all night and most of the morning, to see what's left and see if somebody wants to move up because somebody's first round pick fell to the top. It's a good spot to be in, to be not quite as good as picking first, but it is a good spot to be in when everybody's had all night to try to figure out what they want to do, and you're sitting there. Trent had some interesting comments. He said, if our guy's there, we're going to take him. I'm wondering who that guy is, though. What do you think about the 33rd pick? What area do you think that they might be able to touch with that spot?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because, if you assume that they go edge rusher with the first pick, obviously that takes off offensive lineman, and then now all of a sudden offensive lineman might become that pick at 33. There's some guys. I mean, Tyler Linderbaum is a guy who I feel like in January people were talking about him as being a top 10 pick. I mean, it was kind of crazy, the rise he had from his last year at Iowa, and slowly but surely he's kind of moved down and down and down. Now it seems like he might be a potential option there at 33, and they just got rid of Brandon Linder. I know that they re-signed Tyler Shatley, but they have to, make some sort of move inside at that guard or center position. Obviously, Linderbaum would play center. I think that would be an intriguing pick, and I think that that's a guy that they're definitely high on. Another guy like a Kenyon Green out of Texas A&M. Now he's a guy. I mean, I think they've done their homework on him, and I think they I can't remember if they brought him in for a 30 visit or they met with him at some point. Either way, they've done their homework on him, and he's a guy that absolutely would make sense at that position. Obviously, Zion Johnson as well out of Boston College, but I don't think that he's going to be there personally. But yeah, that 33rd pick is so valuable because not only because they have all that time to, the 24 hours to know who they're going to take, and they already know that they're the first pick of the draft again, but also because, if you're at 33 and there's a guy that's falling in the 25 to 32 range, maybe you want to trade up a little bit. And that's a super valuable pick because now you have an option. We're going to move up a few spots and also, be able to take the guy that's falling, and you get that 5th-year option added on because he's a first rounder now. But it'll be interesting to see. I think that they have a pretty good idea about number 1. I think that that's what they're really honing in on now is that pick at number 33. And I think that offensive lineman just makes sense for me to go there.
It absolutely does make a lot of sense. And if they get Kenyon Green, man, I'm telling you, he's going to be a star. Mm-hmm. He is built like one of those guys that Doug Pederson, has had, those big, filthy 6'4", 330-pound grinders that can move up and down that line. Linderbaum would shock me a little bit only because he has some short arms. And I know Trent thinks about those traits. That could be an equal trade-off. If he goes Travon Walker at first, and then he looks at the coach's eye, he says, all right, I'm not going to go traits this time. I'm going to give you your guy you want. I'm going to go get Linderbaum. And I think that would be a good move also. But he does fit, though, with the way they run their scheme up front. Mm-hmm. He definitely fits, and he's a real, real good athlete. Everybody talks about the wide receiver spot unless one of those guys actually falls to him. I don't know if they see a big difference between a guy that can get at 33 and a guy that they can get at 65 when you're talking about the wide receivers, and they've invested a lot already.
Yeah, they actually talked about that earlier today too, in terms of the wide receivers. There's guys that are at the top, but they're hurt. Jameson Williams, comes to mind when you think of that kind of player. And then Drake London, even though he came back and he's able to do everything now, he's still coming off of that, I believe, foot injury or ankle. Either way, he's a guy that you don't know exactly how he's going to come back from that. So he's hurt too. So unless a guy like Olave or someone begins to fall, I just can't see them going that at 33. The guys, once you get past that top level, they're pretty much all smashed together, and unless you get a guy like that who's at the top level that's falling, I just can't see them going in that direction. But you never know. There's definitely guys later on in the draft that will make sense. It just all depends because you have your top couple players who you might want to take, Garrett Wilson, Jameson Williams, Treylon Burks, maybe even. But then if you're getting to that pick at 33 and only Christian Watson or Sky Moore or John Mechie is on the board, why not just take the better player in terms of value in the offensive lineman or the linebacker even, instead of reaching for a guy because you have that perceived need, when you can just wait, go at 65, maybe a Drake Bell is there, and then call it a day.
So coming out of this draft, there are going to be a lot of positions where they can't fill everything in 1 year or in one free agency. If there's a position coming out of this draft that I'll say they'll have a hole in that position, but it's okay that they have a hole at that position because we know you can't fill everything all at once. I would say if I talked about a position like that, I'd say safety. I'm okay with them going out with the guys that they have right now and competing without addressing that. And so that might factor into my approach too, because at the top of that second round, you might see, I doubt if you see Daxton Hill, but you might see a Jaquan Brister. You might see a Jalen Petrie. You might see those guys that have said, I don't think Lewis Seen's going to be there. There's some people that do. So when you sit there and think there's going to be a really good player that might be the best player available regardless of position. So safeties for me is one that I think we can do with what we have now, even though I'm a big BPA guy. But I tell you what, man, they better. I love Shaq. I don't know if they like him as much, Shaq Quarterman. They better address that Mike linebacker position. Now, the thing with me is you can do it in the second round at the top. You can also do it at the top of the third round with guys like Chad Muma, who the late steam I'm hearing is that he won't last until round 3. But Brian Asamoah you might be able to get a guy like that, who fits the run side, the sideline scheme. And there's this thing with Nakobe Dean, man. I found out people ain't loving on Nakobe Dean like I thought. So,
Yeah, man.
go ahead. What do you think? Name one of those positions. Talk about Nakobe, but then talk about those other positions too.
I was about to say about Dean. It just it seems like every year we have this where you see this guy and you're like, obviously he's a really good player, and then all of a sudden everybody's like, oh well, he's 5'11". He's a little smaller. He might not be able to do everything that you want him to do. I don't care. Personally, you have a Devin White out there with Tampa who's around that same size, who's able to
He's a
do
little bit
what he
bigger.
does.
I don't think David is small. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's a little shorter. Like he's not the 6'4" guy, because everybody's talking about if you get a guy, you need a thumper or you need a big guy. I don't think that's just how the NFL is run these days. I think that you can make do without having those kind of players in there. You don't need a Brandon Spikes anymore. So it's interesting, but as you were talking about, like that position that they can do without, I completely agree. Safety. I mean, Rayshawn Jenkins is out there. Andre Sisco. I don't think that they necessarily need to go, but if there is a Lewis Seen at 33, that's tempting. That's tempting. That guy can make plays from all across the field. He can hit. He can make plays on the ball, and that's exactly what you want to see in a guy at safety. And then you'll end up having guys like Rayshawn maybe rotating in or a Cisco rotating in. Now I know that that's not exactly what their need is, but I can absolutely see it. But
I can too, man. I'm gonna tell you something. It'll be just the Jaguars' luck. They don't take Nakobe Dean, and he goes to the Titans or the Texans, and he terrorizes the Jaguars for the next 8 years, and he's the next Zach Thomas. Mm-hmm. Bobby Wagner ain't that much bigger than him, and this is where. So if I'm taking up for Trent when it comes to traits, this is where Trent's gonna make me mad when it comes to traits, because he's gonna want to get that longer guy with the longer arms, and everybody's in love with all these people. Look, all I'm gonna tell you is this. Say Travon Walker shouldn't be the pick because he didn't do much. The other guy we're talking about, Dean, did a whole lot, but they say, well, he's not too big. This is why drafting a projection is so important, and this is why people get this wrong. If it's we just saw Georgia dominate college football, right? So everybody that wants to tell me about Hutchinson and you need the 14 sacks, you need the production, we might look up and the Georgia Bulldog ain't even taken in the top 20 because everybody's going to keep saying, well, it was his teammates. Well, at some point, we talked about it yesterday. At some point, they had all of those guys and Jermaine Johnson and Azeez Ojulari and Tyson Campbell and that Stokes kid up there in Green Bay, and they got 40 points put on them by Florida, and they got 40 put on them by Alabama. What do you mean his teammates? At some point, we got to give these guys credit for what we saw them doing.
Absolutely, and I'll also echo that. Last year I covered the Gators as well, obviously, but watching the Bulldogs in 2020, that defense was not that good, and it not compared to last year.
And had all those players.
They still had all these players. It's not like those players just magically popped out of nowhere. They all got them out of the transfer portal. No, these are all guys that came in, as recruits to Georgia. They still had Jordan Davis. They still had all of these players that were on the field. The difference is, and you talking about this, the scheme change. Once that scheme changed, they were able to get there, and they're not as active in terms of getting after the quarterback, but they're making sure the quarterback stays in, and they're pushing the pocket, they're collapsing the pocket. That's why you don't see anybody on the team. I don't think anybody on the team had more than 6.5 sacks last year. Let's not lie, like don't pretend as if there's not good pass rushers on that team. All of a sudden, that they were still there last year, so they're still here.
The top 2 sack guys the year before with Jermaine Johnson and Azeez Ojulari. So that's a guy who was a second-round pick and a guy who's going in the first round this year. But now everybody's nitpicking, and I want to see how long we go until there's a Georgia Bulldog off. And if I'm right, that means we got to get this draft thing under control, because it's going to be paralysis by analysis. I'm telling you, it's the best defense I've seen in probably 25 years, and we're going to sit here and only not pick them because they had good teammates. That's going to be the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of in my life. I'm telling you. Demetrius, Harvey, man, Big Cat Country. I'm going to let you go enjoy your weekend. We always love having you here on Locked On Jaguars. I guess I'm going to have to start paying you sooner or later, so we'll get it all figured out. But take care, man. Thank you for joining us, and we thank you all for joining us and making us your first listen here on Locked On Jaguars. For Tony Wiggins and my guest, Demetrius Harvey of Big Cat Country, take care, have a nice weekend, and take care of each other.